Hi everyone, Emily here from Emily's Excellent Epics. And today I have for you my September reading wrap up. And first, I'm going to just talk about my voice. I noticed it's kind of husky today. Um, I was out of town for the weekend and spending the weekend in a hotel. So, hotels are notoriously just horrifically dry. So, I apologize. To the lighting, we're supposed to have rain. So it's kind of gloomy. It's later in the afternoon. I just want to get this filmed and up because we're now October 6th and I'm talking about September. I want to move on. I still have 2 hauls I need to post from September and my birthday, and I'm behind. I'm sorry. September was a rough month for me. Just still trying to get the groove back into being back at school and dealing with that, and then just things going on in the world and mental health, and I kind of tanked. So I struggled to read. I bought a lot and got a lot of books, so that's not good. My numbers have been all over the place. And then when I went out of town this weekend, I did buy a couple of books, and yeah, so my numbers aren't looking so good. Oh well. I did, in order to try to get out of the funk that I was in, I just read as the mood took me. So I ended up actually rereading 3 books. I read a total of 6 books, and 3 of those were rereads. To be fair, one of them I read when I was 14 years old. So I read it 34 years ago. So it's kind of a new book, right? So overall, I read 6 books. My average rating was a 4 star. I read 2,048 pages. I try to hit 3,000 pages a month, so not the best. Print, I read 5 books in print, and one was an audio book. I read fantasy romance, and historical fiction. At the start of the month, my owned books total 758. At the end of the month, it was 777. 326 were read, 330 are read. And I don't know how these numbers are working out. I don't know what I did with my tracker, because some of these just don't seem to be right to me. 432 at the start of the month were unread. Now it's 445 unread. So my percentage of unread went up. It was at the start of the month, it was 56.99% of my library was unread, and now it's 57.42. So not the way that I wanted to go, but like I said, I was coming off of having some really good Pango bucks, and I was just like, you know what, the world's on a dumpster fire. I'm gonna just buy books. It's kind of how things went down in September. October, because I went out of town, like I said, I wanted to buy a couple of books out of town, and now we're going to try to not. And I did buy a couple of books at Aardvark and Book of the Month, but now I'm just like, okay, I need to buckle down and rein in the spending. So that's being said, let's get started with the books. So book 1, I read Lioness Rampant by Tamora Pierce. This was a reread. I've read this series, excuse me, numerous times. This is book 4 in her first series that takes place in Tortal, that we follow Alana and her friends. Alana is now a full-blown knight, and we follow her adventures, and in this excuse me, in this novel, we have a quest, and she goes on a quest. So this is part of a read-along that Christy Lewis over at Christy Lewis Dostoevsky in Space, and Dia over at Novel Idea, and Victoria over at A Musical Bookworm, they have been hosting live shows. They're reading through this series, and then The Immortals. The first book of that is Wild Magic, and then the Lady Knight series. Protector of the Small is the name of that series. Okay, so what I liked about this book, I I really liked Alana finally coming into her own and accepting all aspects of who she is. At the beginning of the series, she really didn't like the fact, like she resented the fact that she was female because she wants to be a knight. And in Tortal, women cannot be knights. And so she disguises herself as a boy so she can study to be a knight. And just kind of really resents being a woman. And in this, she's like, you know what? I'm going to wear dresses and do these things. And that's just part of my identity. And that's okay. And part of my identity is I'm a knight and I'm the best knight in the realm, but I'm also a female. And she embraces that. She didn't like her gift, which is like a magic. And she was actually kind of afraid of it. And now she's like, this is just part of who I am. And it's a tool that I can use to help me. Um, and sometimes it does kind of give me an unfair advantage against other people, but like at the same time, like if I'm under attack, I need to protect myself, protect the people that I'm sworn to protect. And so why would I not use this tool? And that is a problem for some people in her life. The things that I did not like in this book, we do have a new romantic interest, and that romantic interest I felt was pretty condescending towards her. Like, I mean, he is an older person. I don't mind an age gap, but there are times where it's very clear that he's like talking down to her and condescending towards her. It's like, ooh, that's a bad look for you, dude. And he does not like her magic. He's afraid of her magic. And they have a conversation about that. And so she even kind of admits to herself that this whole relationship is doomed from the start, and yet she still engages in that relationship. And I had a problem with that. Now, Tamora Pierce does in her afterword, reflects on the fact that she wrote this like as part of, Alana embracing who she is and her sexuality. She wrote this coming off of the women's rights movements in the 70s. And so that definitely did influence us, but I didn't want her to be in a relationship for the sake of having a relationship. And that I felt kind of happened. But I do really like the series. I love how things tie up, and I do like the ending. The next book I read was The Enchanted Greenhouse by Sarah Beth Durst. This is a companion novel to The Spell Shop. Some would say this is Spell Shop Book 2. The very beginning takes place before The Spell Shop, and then the rest of the novel takes place after The Spell Shop, okay? In this, we follow, what's her name? Turlu, and I don't remember his name, Yarrow. Okay. So Turlu is the librarian who, in The Spell Shop, she's a librarian who created Kaz. And so if you want Kaz in this book, he makes a very brief cameo at the beginning, and then we don't see Kaz again. Because Kaz is living his best life with the other characters that I just can't remember. Kiala, and I don't remember the other guy's name. Okay. What I liked, I gave this book 4.5 stars. Oh, and I forgot to mention, I buddy read this with Fiona over at my Cozy Haven and Rebecca, I want to say, one of Fiona's friends. And that was just really wonderful and delightful to hear their perspectives and their takes on this book. And it made this book more fun to read. What I really liked about this book was the social commentaries. It does make some commentaries on some things that are happening in the United States right now. So if you are someone who don't want politics in your books, you might not I don't know how you might feel about this book. It's very light about a commentary about refugees and welcoming them into your land. So just be mindful of that. But I I can handle social commentary. I can't handle it like in regular literature, like that's contemporary, but when it's done through because a lot of like contemporary literature deals with trauma and I can't handle that because it's too close to home. I work in a Title I school. When it's done through a fantasy lens or a sci-fi lens, I can deal with it more. The more heavy emphasis was not on refugees and welcoming refugees. It was more on Turlu and Yarrow's trauma and dealing with that trauma and how that trauma is affecting them, their relationships with each other, and their relationships with the greenhouse and the people who lived on the island before Turlu arrived. Um, and I really liked how they handled it. Um, what brought down my rating for this book was the fact that I felt it was very insta-lovey. I did love the relationship between Yarrow and Turlu. I thought it was beautiful and just very caring, um, and very healthy, like, and very respectful towards each other. But it was very insta-lovey. Where I like, there was at one point where I'm like, she's talking like she's known him for months. She's been on that island for 3 weeks. Like, what? So, yeah, I do think this is a wonderful read. I'm looking forward to book 3. So, the next book I read was Fondue or Die by Karina Moss. This is book 5 out of 6. Oh, excuse me, itchy nose. Book 5 out of 6 in the Cheese Shop Mysteries. And what was so delightful about this is Tiffany over at Beach Bum Bookworm, she has been having Karina Moss live on her channel towards the end of the month, and where we discuss each book. And that has been so much fun and just so enriching and rewarding. So I'm not going to go too much into this book because, again, it's book 5. But I will always love me some Detective Heath. And in this book, Willa is not actually in Yarrow Glen. She's at like the town over. And there's a Dairy Days festival in the town over. And there's a beauty pageant. And there's a murder of someone involved with the like the organizer of the beauty pageant, the person who has run it. And in this, Detective Heath does not have any jurisdiction because it's not his town. And so he's like, you know what? Let's work together, Willa, and let's solve this case together. And I really enjoyed seeing them work together as equals and that relationship develop more. Whereas in past books, he was kind of like, no, Willa, you cannot, investigate this because I don't want you hurt. I am the detective. This is my job to do. I have to do this because this is my job. And I want you to stay uninvolved because I don't want you interfering in the investigation. And I don't want you putting yourself in dangerous positions. So I do appreciate some of the conversations they've had in this book about why do they have both of those? Why does Willa feel the need to investigate when there's a murder that happens? And why does Detective Heath feel he needs to say, like, no, I don't want you investigating? So super enjoying this. I'm looking forward to book 6 and the last one. I forgot to mention, I did use this for the Herkhead, the Serious Staircase in the last 10 years. I used this book for Herkhead. I don't know what I used it for, but I used it for Herkhead. Then I read Bride. I did not use this for Herkhead. I'm going to use Mate for Herkhead instead, like for Paranormal, because I'm struggling with trying to figure out how to use rereads for Herkhead. I'm using the spreadsheet that I downloaded off of Cordy's website. And I know you can use rereads for every 10 books, and then you also earn points. So I don't know. I think I did something wrong with the rereads. I think I have too many rereads. So bottom line, it's just a challenge for fun. So, but I'm not using this for her kid. This was a reread. I listened to it on audio instead of reading it with my eyeballs because time. Um, and in this, we follow Misery. She is a vampire, and she is in an arranged marriage with Lo, who is the alpha of a were pack. And the reason why they're in this arranged marriage is because there are tenuous alliances between wares and humans and vampires and trying to keep the peace. She agrees to this marriage of convenience because her good friend that she grew up with, who is a human, has disappeared. And she thinks that Lo has something to do with her friend Serena's disappearance. This is very Omegaverse heavy, so just be warned. Um, I this book first came out, it came out at a really bad weekend for me teaching, and it just hit the spot for me. And this month, it just took my mind off of things that's going on in the world, and I really enjoyed it. And I'm so looking forward to Mate. They do kind of give you a taste of what the two main characters in Mates who they will be. So then I read Heartbreak Hotel by Eleanor Clover, and I used this for new release and the even bigger rainbow green on the cover for her kid. Okay. I gave this 2.5 stars. I don't know. I think I would give this a 2-star. Here's why this did not work for me. So our main character is Louisa, or Lou, and she's 26 years old. Her boyfriend is like this rock star. They live in this beautiful, wonderful house in Colorado. And she catches her boyfriend cheating on her. So they break up. And he moves out, and she's like, I'm keeping the house. But she has no income because she failed her licensing exam to become a clinical social worker. So she has no income. So she's like, you know what? I'm going to convert this house that I'm renting. She talks with her landlord, and he agrees. Okay, cool. You can turn it into a bed and breakfast. And he's a veterinarian, and he's got his own backstory. His name is Henry. Okay. It seems like a good premise. Her backstory is her mother has borderline personality disorder, and her upbringing was very chaotic because of that. I don't feel like they really developed that backstory well at all. He's got a backstory I'm not going to share because it's really spoilery. There's a reason why he's not living at that house. It's very spoilery. That's why I'm not going to share it. I don't feel like that was developed well. I felt like Lou, at 26 years old, was just very immature. And maybe, you know what, like 26-year-olds are somewhat immature, but I just felt like she was very immature. And I want maturity and depth in relationships. I'm 48. It's harder to relate to a 26-year-old. And then Henry's like 34, 35. So it's like maybe a 10-year age gap, 9-year age gap. It's not a huge age gap, but there are times where she comments about like, oh, this is such an age gap. Oh, it's such an age gap. I'm like, look, I think of age gap as like 15, 20 years, not 8 or 9. So yeah, this one just didn't work for me. I mean, it worked for her kid. Didn't work for me overall. This will go in my Panko shop. Peace out. And last I read, you can't tell. This is an old copy. I read To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee. Here's what's fascinating. So like this one is a 9th impression. When it came out, you can see there, it says reviewed 3/14/61. And then it's cool because there's a stamp there of a law firm that some lawyer in Chicago owned. It has the address. So that I thought was interesting. Okay, so I read this book my freshman year of high school. When I was in high school, this was very much canonical freshman year text, okay? And excuse me. I don't know how to rate this book. I don't know. If we're looking at how was it written, okay, and not the ideas expressed in this book, I would say it's a 5-star read in just how it was written, okay? And here's why. Harper Lee is a really good writer. She knows how to craft a story. What works for me, I really like the whole bookend deal where, in storytelling, where we start off the story with like, here's this event that we're leading up to. Then we flash back and we follow the events in chronological order leading up to our climactic moment at the end that are the beginning of the story alluded to. I love that. I love how authors, that way of unfolding a story really works well for me. I think she had some really good things to say in this. If we look at this as just a coming of age story, 5 stars. It very much follows, 3 children, Scout, Jem, Dill, as they, grow up in the South. There's always, that house in the neighborhood where it's like, I don't know. We had a couple of houses in my neighborhood growing up where it was like, the people that live there, they're kind of kooky. I was trying to say kooky and creepy at the same time, and it did not work out well for me. They're kind of creepy or kooky and like mysterious, like the ghost story aspect worked well for me. What did not sit well for me, growing up, and I honestly don't remember how this aspect was taught. I remember distinctly how this book was taught as far as like the ghost story Boo Radley aspect of it. To Kill a Mockingbird and how the To Kill a Mockingbird and how we should not kill something that's just meant to sing and be pretty. I remember distinctly how that was taught in relationship to Tom Robinson. Okay. What did not dawn on me until the end of this book is that Atticus Finch is a bird. And so if we're looking at that and how it relates to our title, To Kill a Mockingbird, we shouldn't kill mockingbirds. And it's very clear that this bird theme, we don't want to kill anyone with bird names, that Atticus Finch and Scout Finch and Jem, they would be a part of that. Now, that's where the problems begin for me. Because how this book is really taught in a lot of high schools, and I don't remember if it was taught that way for me. Again, it was 34 years ago. I just don't remember this aspect. And how the movie is portrayed is like, oh wow, Atticus is this great progressive person, because he is defending Tom Robinson, and we can't judge someone until we walk a mile in their shoes, And that's progressive for the time that this was written. We really do need to understand that and remember that. This is very progressive for the time that this was written. But what didn't sit well with me is Atticus and Scout and Jem. They're quite racist, classist, sexist, and ableist. So what I did, you can see I've tabbed this book. The blue tabs are like when it comes to like the Mockingbird themes, the ghost story themes, just things that were beautifully written. Anything that was tabbed yellow were instances where like all of the isms, like the racism, the sexism, the classism, the ableism, that's when all that took place. And then these pink ones were like the times where I felt it was most egregious coming from Scout or Jen or Atticus. I actually even created a spreadsheet because I wanted to see, where is the isms coming from? Is it mainly from the town, or is it from the Finches? Predominantly the Finches. Um, if you read Ghost at a Watchman, which I did when it first came out, it's very clear that Atticus is a racist. In this book, it's clear as well. You just have to kind of piece it together a little bit more than it blatantly states. Like, there's one time when Scout, asks Atticus, like, are you a blank lover? And Atticus says, we don't use that term because it's common. Not because it's racist, but because it's common. And we are not common people. So we're not going to use that term. And it yeah, there's a whole lot more instances of racism. Like, I could do a whole video just on that. So I'm not going to. But it really, I think, to fully appreciate this novel, you have to accept the fact that those things are in here. And that doesn't mean, I don't know. I'm not really having a good time articulating my thoughts. Do I think that this is canonical in American literature? Yes. Do I think this is canonical in high school literature? In the past, yes. Do I think this should be taught now? I don't think so. And for reasons why, and I agree with what Nicole said, I highly recommend that you go over to Nicole over at Noteworthy Fiction. She does a really good discussion with, I don't remember who else, one of her friends. They're doing like a whole series of like rereading books that they either have already read in high school or should have read in high school, and then discussing them. And I feel like Nicole had some really good things to say about why she did not feel this should be taught in schools. Um, and I think her opinion and her view is something that we need to listen to, given that she is a person of color, and the damage that words and verbiage in this book can bring to a person and to a student reading that. And especially when we look at high school students, I work with high school students, okay? It's going to be like, it's hard to, they have a hard time processing and reasoning, but just anyone, I think, who reads this and going, ooh, like, I think anyone I could see would be very uncomfortable and would be really hard to take reading that word as many times as it is in this book. So do I think this should still be taught? No. I think now that we know better, we can do better in our literature and what we teach to students. I also don't think it would land well with students today. I think there are better books out there that deals with racism and classism and ableism in America than this book. And that's what should be taught. Do I appreciate, am I glad that I read this? Absolutely. I don't regret reading this. But I think to have a true understanding and a true appreciation for this book, we have to accept this book, the good and the bad, and recognize there are racist things in here, and that was considered like, but even so, like the how Atticus still defended a black man. Yes, he was assigned the case. progressive for that time. And that's just like, whoa, that's not that long ago in our history, you know, and that was still considered progressive for that time. We need to do better. Okay, so sorry for that little mini rant. It's so hard to articulate thoughts sometimes on a book that it's just hard. Like, it's just hard sometimes to process my thoughts on a book that has benefited so many people, but also that can cause damage to some people. And how do we handle that? And I hope that I articulated them as well, and I hope that I did it as sensitively as I possibly could, because I want to make sure that I'm being respectful of people and where they are in their lives. Phew. Okay. So what's up for me next? Like I said, I do have a couple of haul videos I still need to post from my birthday. And I am I'm still working my way out of a reading slump. Fingers crossed I will defeat it. I'm really trying. I really am. The adjustment this year back to school is harder than I thought it was going to be. That's okay. At any rate, please please subscribe. Let me know your thoughts on anything. Have you read To Kill a Mockingbird? What are you looking forward to in October reading? For me, it's Mate. That's my most anticipated release for October. And in the comments, first, please be respectful in the comments below, especially given one of the books that I've reviewed. Please be respectful of people's different opinions and just be respectful. We're coming up on October. So if there's a pumpkin emoji or a ghost emoji, we're in October. If there's a pumpkin emoji or a ghost emoji or like a fall leaf, pumpkin spice, anything fall vibes, leave that emoji. Thank you so much for watching.